You ever get that feeling where a game randomly shows up in your memory years later and you're like, wait, why did nobody talk about this? Not the big Gedegoe stuff everyone argues about online, but those hidden games that hit harder than they had any right to. The ones that quietly blow your mind, then disappear like they were never there. Today, I'm breaking that silence. We're going through 15 hidden gaming masterpieces that most people completely missed or forgot about. And trust me, some of these will make you question how they were never bigger. I'm talking insane moments, unexpected emotions, and gameplay that still holds up way better than it should. Stick around, because by the end of this, you're definitely gonna find at least one game you can't believe you never played. Alright, let's start digging into these forgotten gems. When you first drop into BioShock Infinite, it doesn't even feel like you're starting a game. It feels like you've walked into another reality that shouldn't exist. One minute you're in this quiet boat ride, the next you're stepping into Columbia, this bright floating city that looks beautiful on the surface, but slowly starts feeling off in a really uncomfortable way. And that's where it gets interesting. What really stuck with me isn't just the story, it's how fast the game flips your expectations. You think you're just here for a classic shooter, then suddenly you're dealing with Elizabeth, and honestly, she changes everything. The way she moves through the world, helps you in fights, and reacts to what's happening makes the whole experience feel alive in a way most games still struggle with. There were moments where I actually stopped fighting just to watch her interact with the environment, which is crazy for a fast-paced game like this. And the combat, yeah, it can get chaotic, sometimes even a bit messy, but those skyhook rail rides during fights? Pure adrenaline. 1 second you're grounded, next second you're flying across rails dodging bullets like it's some kind of broken dream. But here's the thing that really hit me later. This game isn't just about action. It messes with your head in a way you don't fully understand until long after you finish it. And I'm not even gonna lie, the ending still sits in my mind like a glitch I can't shake off. But before I say too much, I need to know. Walking into a building that should not exist, but somehow nobody else is reacting to it. The moment you step inside the oldest house, everything is normal for like 2 seconds, then reality just starts folding in on itself. Walls shifting, rooms changing shape, and that weird feeling that the building is alive and watching you. I remember thinking, alright, this is gonna get weird, and the game immediately goes, you have no idea. What really makes it stick is the way Jessie feels inside this chaos. She's not some overpowered hero right away. She's figuring things out while everything around her is breaking rules that don't exist anywhere else. And when you start unlocking abilities like telekinesis, throwing desks, concrete chunks, even enemies across the room, it turns into controlled chaos in the best way possible. The combat starts feeling like you're barely holding reality together by force. But the real magic is the atmosphere. The sound design alone is enough to make you uncomfortable in the best way. That low hum in the hallways, the sudden silence before things go wrong, the documents and recordings that slowly reveal this whole hidden government nightmare. It all builds this constant tension like something huge is always about to happen. And then there are those moments where the game just stops explaining itself and expects you to accept that reality is broken here. No hand-holding, no safety net, just you trying to survive. Place that shouldn't exist. It's confusing at times, yeah, but in a way that keeps pulling you deeper instead of pushing you away. But trust me, things only get stranger from here. When you start The Evil Within 2, it feels like a normal horror setup for about 5 minutes, and then the game slowly starts twisting your brain in ways you don't really notice at first. You're playing as Sebastian again, but this time, it's not just random terror, it's personal. His daughter is inside this broken digital nightmare world, and that alone changes the whole vibe from survive the horror to I need to get her out no matter what. The creepy part is how calm it tricks you into feeling at times. You'll walk through these almost empty suburban-looking areas that feel way too quiet, and then out of nowhere, everything collapses into chaos. Monsters appear in places they shouldn't. The environment glitches like reality is failing, and suddenly you're scrambling just to stay alive with barely any resources. Ammo matters here. Every shot feels like a decision, not just action. What really stuck with me is how the game messes with pacing. One moment, you're carefully sneaking past something that feels unstoppable, and the next moment you're forced into pure panic combat, where everything goes wrong at once. And somehow, that mix works. It keeps you constantly uneasy, like the game is never letting you settle into comfort. There are also those moments where you think you understand what's going on, and then the story throws something at you that makes you question everything again. What makes this game unforgettable is how it turns darkness itself into the enemy. You're not just shooting monsters. First, you have to burn away the darkness surrounding them with your flashlight before your bullets do anything. It sounds simple, but in practice it creates this constant pressure where every battery feels valuable and every dark forest path feels like a terrible idea. And trust me, there are a lot of dark forest paths. The atmosphere carries the entire experience. The fog rolling through the trees, the distant sounds in the woods, random objects flying at your face like some angry ghost is throwing a tantrum, it all creates this tension that never completely goes away. Then there's Alan himself, a writer trapped inside a story that seems to be writing itself around him. The deeper you go, the more reality starts bending, and eventually you stop trying to figure out what's real and just enjoy the ride. Not every combat encounter is perfect. Some fights can feel repetitive. But honestly, I barely cared because I was so invested in finding out what crazy thing would happen next. Every chapter ends with another mystery, another clue, another moment that makes you say, okay, now I have to keep going. And if you think reality-bending stories are wild, the next game takes that idea and cranks the action up to another level, dropping into Middle-earth. Shadow of Mordor is one of those moments where you think you already know what you're getting, then the game just completely flips it on you. At first, it feels like a standard open-world fantasy game. Orcs, swords, stealth, the usual stuff. But then the Nemesis system kicks in, and suddenly everything becomes personal in a way I honestly wasn't ready for. Because here's what happens. You don't just fight enemies, you remember them. That random orc captain you barely survived against? He comes back later with scars, a new title, and a full-on attitude problem like he remembers humiliating you. And the worst part is, he probably does. The game turns every small encounter into a future story, and it's kind of wild how quickly you start recognizing names instead of just enemies. What really hooked me was how unpredictable the fights became. 1 second you're dominating a group of orcs, feeling like a total legend, and then suddenly a stronger captain shows up, everything goes sideways, and you're barely escaping with your life. And instead of feeling cheap, it feels like the game is building a rivalry with you, like it's keeping score. There's also this constant push and pull between feeling powerful and feeling completely overwhelmed. You get stronger, unlock brutal abilities, and start clearing enemies like nothing, but the world always finds a way to remind you that you're not untouchable. And honestly, that balance is what makes it stick in your head long after you stop playing. And just when you think you've seen how far a game can go with AI-driven chaos, the next one pushes things in a completely different direction. Hinged than you expect. You're Jason Brody, completely out of your depth, dropped into this tropical nightmare where everything looks beautiful, but nothing feels safe. And the crazy part is how fast the game strips away your comfort. At first, you're sneaking, hiding, barely surviving gunfights, and every animal in the jungle feels like it personally wants you gone. Then slowly, you start adapting. You take over outposts, upgrade weapons, and suddenly, you're not just surviving anymore, you're hunting the hunters. That shift from scared outsider to full-on predator is what makes the whole experience so addictive. But let's talk about Voss for a second, because that's where everything changes. Every time he shows up, the energy completely shifts. He's not just a villain, he feels unpredictable in a way that actually gets under your skin. That famous definition of insanity moment isn't just a quote people repeat online. It genuinely sticks with you because it feels like the game is messing with your head as much as the characters. What I liked most is how the island itself becomes part of the gameplay loop. One minute you're doing a mission, the next you're distracted hunting animals, then suddenly you're taking down an enemy base you didn't even plan to attack. It pulls you in and keeps you there without you even realizing how much time has passed. And by the time you realize how far Jason has changed, you start wondering if he's still the same guy who crashed on that island in the first place. Next game changes the tone again in a way you won't expect. When you jump into Crisis, the first thing that hits you is not even the story or enemies, it's the fact that the game looks like it's flexing on your hardware from the very first second. But once you get past that, it turns into something way more interesting than just a tech showcase. You're dropped onto this massive island with full freedom, and your nanosuit basically turns you into a one-man experiment in chaos control. One moment you're going stealth, barely visible, sneaking through enemy lines like a ghost. Next moment, you're switching to armor mode, tanking bullets, throwing enemies, and turning entire encounters into controlled destruction. And the best part is, the game actually lets you decide how you want to play every situation. What really makes it memorable is how open everything feels. You're not locked into one approach. You can flank enemies through the jungle, go loud with heavy weapons, or just vanish and reposition like you never existed. And when it works, it feels like you're breaking the game in a smart way, not cheating it. But it's not just about power. There are moments where things get overwhelming fast. Enemies coordinate, vehicles roll in, and suddenly your perfect plan turns into pure survival instinct. That shift keeps every fight unpredictable, even when you think you've mastered the suit. And honestly, what stuck with me most is how ahead of its time it felt. Even today, it still feels like a playground for experimentation rather than a scripted shooter. And just when you think you've seen peak freedom in combat, the next game takes pure chaos to an even bigger level. It feels like you're playing it exactly right. Every mission turns into a sandbox of destruction, and half the fun is just seeing how ridiculous you can make things before everything collapses. But I'll be real, it's not all deep storytelling or emotional weight. Sometimes it's just chaos for chaos' sake, and that can feel a bit repetitive if you're not in the mood. Still, when it clicks, it's one of the most satisfying power fantasies in gaming. And just when you think you've seen the most unhinged open-world playground possible, the next game takes the concept in a completely different direction. Jumping into Watch Dogs 2 feels like the series finally decided to loosen up and actually have fun with itself. And honestly, it works way better than people expected. You're dropped into San Francisco as Marcus, and right away the vibe is different. It's not dark and overly serious anymore. It feels alive, colorful, and way more unpredictable. What really makes it click is how much freedom you have with hacking. You're not just shooting your way through missions. You're taking over cameras, hijacking cars, distracting guards with drones, and turning entire buildings into your personal puzzle box. Sometimes you don't even touch a gun. You just sit back and watch chaos unfold because you planned it perfectly from a distance. And the movement around the world actually feels fun. Parkour across rooftops, slipping through crowds, sneaking into restricted areas while the city keeps going like nothing is wrong. It gives you this feeling that you're part of a system you're constantly bending without anyone realizing it. But what surprised me most is the tone. The hacker group you're part of feels like a mix of chaos and humor, and it keeps the game from getting too heavy. Some people didn't like that shift, but for me, it made everything feel more engaging and less draining than typical serious hacker story games. Still, it's not perfect. Sometimes, missions can feel a bit scripted, like the game wants you to solve problems in a specific way, even though you clearly have 10 other options. But when it opens up, it really opens up. And just when you think hacking is the most creative way to control a world, the next game throws you into something way more physical and brutal. Here's more points. It turns every encounter into this chaotic playground where style matters just as much as survival. And the movement tools make it even crazier. You've got a leash that pulls enemies toward you, a slide kick that sends them flying, and a slow-motion mechanic that lets you line up absurd trick shots that feel almost unfair in how satisfying they are. It's the kind of game where you start experimenting just to see how many different ways you can mess up an enemy's day. But I'll be honest, it doesn't take itself seriously at all. The humor is loud, over the top, and sometimes completely ridiculous. That might not land for everyone, but it actually fits the chaos perfectly. It feels like the game knows it's unhinged and leans into it on purpose, and that's what makes it memorable. It's not trying to be realistic or grounded, it's just pure arcade energy wrapped in explosions and bad decisions that somehow feel amazing. And now, things are about to slow down just a little, but in a much more dangerous, quiet kind of way. The game doesn't rely on jump scares alone. It's the constant feeling of being hunted that sticks with you. Even when nothing is happening, you're not relaxed. You're just waiting. But here's the thing that really got me. After a while, you stop feeling like the player and start feeling like the prey. And that shift is what makes it unforgettable. And the next game takes horror in a completely different direction, way more psychological than you'd expect.
See if I can't find something to fix up this scratch. Okay. Bounties. There we go.
Not just punching and kicking, it's these brutal, close-quarters fights where you're throwing enemies into walls, counters feel satisfying, and environmental takedowns are everywhere. Grabbing someone and smashing their face into a phone booth or a grill never really gets old, even after hours. But the real hook is the identity conflict. One mission you're doing police work, following procedure, acting clean. Next moment, you're deep in gang territory doing things that slowly blur the line between justice and survival. And the game doesn't let you forget it. You can feel Wei Shen getting pulled deeper into the life he's supposed to destroy. The open world also has this nice rhythm to it, racing through crowded streets, doing side activities like fights and races, then suddenly getting dragged into a serious story mission that shifts the tone completely. It keeps things unpredictable in a grounded way that feels more personal than chaotic. And honestly, what stayed with me most is how it mixes crime drama storytelling with really physical, raw combat. It's not flashy in a super over-the-top way, but it feels heavy, like every hit actually means something. And just when you think we've seen the best undercover crime story gaming has to offer, the next one goes full cinematic sci-fi action. Finishing this list with Max Payne 3 feels like closing a chapter on pure, gritty, no-nonsense action storytelling. From the very first scene, it doesn't even try to ease you in. It throws you straight into a broken version of Max, way past his best days, drowning in regret, pain, and bad decisions that never really stopped catching up to him. What hits hardest is how heavy everything feels. The gunfights aren't just flashy action moments, they feel desperate. Bullet time isn't just a cool mechanic here, it's survival. You're diving through windows, sliding across floors, clearing rooms in slow motion, while everything around you is pure chaos. And somehow, it still feels grounded in this dark, depressing world where nothing ever really goes right for Max. The story itself is what keeps you locked in. It's not about being a hero, it's about a man who keeps getting dragged deeper into violence no matter where he goes. Every mission feels like another step down instead of up. And by the end, you don't really feel like you've won anything. You just understand him a little more. Even the atmosphere is heavy. Bright, flashy locations mixed with this constant feeling of decay underneath it all. It's the kind of game where the action is amazing, but the mood stays with you even longer than the gameplay. And honestly, ending this list with Max Payne 3 just feels right. It's chaotic, emotional, brutal, and unforgettable all at once. And that's it for today's video. If you made it this far, you're officially part of the real ones who actually appreciate these hidden gems instead of just chasing the latest releases. Now I need you to do me a favor. Drop a comment and tell me which game on this list you actually played or which one you're downloading first. I want to see what you guys connect with most. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to hit like and subscribe because I've got way more hidden masterpieces and underrated games lined up that most people are still sleeping on. And trust me, the next list might be even crazier than this one. Alright, I'll catch you in the next one.